Today I'm going to be talking to you about something we've been doing at City University, which is using ResponseWare. I'm going to talk about that and talk about some mobile learning stuff as well. But first of all, I have a question for you all to wake you up. This is courtesy of my colleague Mike Cameron, who was at Durham University, he's now at Newcastle. He found these really interesting pictures, and I was wondering if you could tell me what this is. Let's have a look. I don't know, it's a bit fuzzy, this image, but you can see these little boxes. So this is a photograph taken from 1966 showing a classroom. These boxes are little electronic voting systems, and they're all wired up, and apparently it's very complicated, but this was like the classroom of the future back in around 1966. And this is what we look like now, okay? This is the sort of setup we have at City University. It's obviously changed. We've got the ResponseWare cards. That's the basic system that we have. All of our students enjoy them. We've never had any negative comments about them. But we do have issues in terms of lecturers saying, oh, it takes me so long every time we use the clickers because we have to hand them out and we have to ensure that they're all handed back in. So there's like practical issues around that. And really that's the barrier that we find we have at City in terms of take-up of this technology. And I know at Surrey they've got the loan system. We didn't do that at City. We sort of have several libraries, and they all have like a local pool of handsets that they lend out to lecturers, and it's the lecturer's responsibility to then hand out the handsets. And unfortunately we don't have classroom assistants either, so it's really very much on the lecturer to get the handsets to all the students. And we really like these response cards, or clickers as we call them. However, we're restricted to the types of questions that we can ask. It's really multiple choice. We'd really like to be able to ask kind of free text, questions that require free text answers. And I know there's clickers out there that can do that, but they are often quite bulky, and they are prone to sort of running out of batteries, and they're very heavy, and the lecturers aren't really keen on using them. So that's why we looked at ResponseWare, because we thought, well, hang on a minute. Students, they all carry a mobile phone, a smartphone or something like that. And ResponseWare, well, we can use the students' mobile devices as voting devices. And we really felt that this would solve not only the practical issues that we were facing, but some of the pedagogic challenges around the types of questions we could ask. So we're not just restricted to multiple choice questions. And finally, we really like the fact that ResponseWare is a TurningPoint product. So it does work fine with PowerPoint. And a lot of the time we are talking to our lecturers and saying, if you can use PowerPoint, you can use TurningPoint. You're halfway there, it's fine. And they're okay with that. So this is how ResponseWare works. And this is actually something I pinched from my colleague Nitin Palmer at the University of Bath. Sorry, the text is very small, but we'll actually see how it works in a second. I'll take you through it. I know some of you, you guys are from the States, and you've probably used this loads of times before, but in the UK it's still quite new. Before we let ResponseWare loose on our students, we really wanted to find out what people generally thought of ResponseWare. And so what we did is we had an eSticked event last year at the University of Edinburgh, and myself and my colleague Mike Cameron, we used ResponseWare, and we used it with a Prezi as well, if those of you are familiar with Prezi presentations. And we got some comments back from people about ResponseWare, and they were generally very positive about it. Most people, 72% expressing positive notions about being asked to use their mobile device to vote with. So that was good. And there's a bit more about that here. We found that 71% of people were able to use their mobile device, 4% weren't quite sure, and 24% were completely unable to take part. And this was down to things like they didn't have a very good mobile phone reception. Some of them had like weird security certificate issues, which we couldn't quite understand. 14% of them experienced like problems which we knew about, which we kind of suspected would happen, like the fact that they needed to refresh their screen every time a question appeared. And in fact, some of you may today experience the same problems, which would be interesting to find out. And then we asked them, we said to them, look, are there any can you really sort of see the differences between using a regular clicker and using your mobile device to vote with? And 75% of them said, yes, they can see a big difference. They liked the fact that they could see a graph on their screen showing how everyone had responded and in relation to their votes. They liked the fact that they could provide free text answers to questions. But then some of them said that actually it's not as immediate. You just pick up a clicker and you can just press and go. With a mobile device and ResponseWare, it's, you have to log in and it's a bit more faff. But we'll see what you think. So we're going to try this now. If you have a mobile device, please use it. Connect to the Wi-Fi, or maybe you can use 3G. I'll just say that what I'm going to do for this presentation is I'm going to use ResponseWare and TurningPoint Anywhere together. I'm just going to hop over to TurningPoint Anywhere now, because I've discovered something which I think is quite good to, and TurningPoint Anywhere is the only way I can figure out how to do this, but you'll see in a second. Okay, so this is TurningPoint Anywhere. You probably can't see that. So I've preloaded some questions in for you. Oops. Okay. So, right, this is the first question. Can you tell me what is the percentage of adults in the UK who personally own or use a mobile phone? Now, if you wanted to, and this is what we encouraged with the students as well, we'd say to them, if you have any sort of like additional questions about the question I've just asked you, just send me a message. Just send me a message, and actually I'll be able to see that coming through. I'll show you in a second. So start sending me messages, and then I can demonstrate that to everyone, how I can see that and send you feedback to your devices as well. I'm going to close the polling. Okay, and there we go. Yeah, the correct answer is 91% of adults in the UK, which is quite high. You should all see that graph on your screens, those of you that are using your mobile devices. Okay, let's go on to the next question then. Okay. Again, same question, but for our students at City University. So anyway, what do you think? 25 responses in. I'll close that. Yeah, you're all right. Well, most of you are right. It's 99%, which is incredible. And we have students that own not just one mobile device, but they'll own several. So it really is a big deal that we need to be not exploiting students' own devices, but we certainly need to be paying attention to them and recognising that students, they own this stuff, and it just makes sense to be able to use it effectively. All right, this is a slightly different question, and I'm afraid that people that are using the regular response cards won't be able to answer it. But those of you that are using your devices, can you tell me the average number of text messages sent per mobile subscription per month in the UK? And if you can try to answer within the nearest 20 text messages, that would be good. I'm going to close the polling now. There we go. So we've got, okay. This grid always confuses me, but I think that means 3 people have said 200. 15 people I don't think said anything. 2 people said 100. 1 person said 110. 1 person said 130. Okay, well, this person, whoever answered 110, is very, very close. It's actually 113. So, there you go. Has anyone been sending me any text messages? Cool, okay. So, here I can see all my feedback from my students. Hello, 200%, 2 iPhones each, also smartphones. Hello, back from the back of the room, hello. What do you mean? Feedback from iPad. Okay, so there's different messages coming in there. Oh. Is that Greek? Right, somebody's writing, oh, okay. Some kind of, anyway, there's lots of questions there, which is great. And so as a lecturer, if I was kind of running this over an extended period of time and I was receiving messages from my students, what I can do is I can actually respond to the whole class, which I'll do now, and I'm going to respond to one of these questions, device ID guest _1946. Do you ask all students at City to take part in the mobile device survey? And the answer is yes and no. We're not allowed to ask our final year students because they're doing the National Student Survey and we're not allowed to over-survey them. So I'm just going to say yes and no to that question. But I'm going to send that specifically to here, a specific device. And here, this is where I provide the ID of the device, which I'll just copy and paste into this box. And whoever that was should just see that message from me. So you can kind of have this two-way conversation with students as a group or just specific students, which is quite interesting, I think. And we haven't really explored it as well as we'd like to yet, but you can imagine, certainly for smaller group sizes, I think, which are a bit more manageable, that this would be quite an interesting thing to do. And it sort of follows on from this idea of instant feedback that students are very keen on. So, not meaning to over-question you or anything, I have another question for you. What do you think the term mobile learning means? Please select the statement that most closely fits with your definition. Also, you can send me a text message if you want to give me your own views on what mobile learning means. I'm just going to close the polling. Mobile learning means that you as an individual are learning on the go. Yeah. And interestingly, very few of you said mobile learning mobile learning means to add something to face-to-face teaching. It's quite interesting. So, with that in mind, what do you think our students at the university thought? What do you think the most popular definition for our students was? Oh, that's interesting. So most of you said mobile learning means using mobile devices for learning. Actually, they all agreed with you in the previous question. And again, hardly any of them talked about it adding anything to face-to-face teaching or anything like that. But yeah, most of them said what you said. I want to go back to the mobile device survey that we carried out with our students, and these are the results that we got last year. We're still looking at this year's results. But we asked students a question. We basically said to them, in an ideal world, how would you like to use your mobile devices in a teaching and learning context? And what this graph basically shows is that pretty much all of them said, and we surveyed about 800 students, they said they wanted to use it for activities that involved them receiving information and just kind of not really interacting with anything. It was just really there for information purposes only. That's all they wanted to do. So things like being able to receive their grades and feedback, being able to look at the timetable for the day, receiving text alerts, so on. But when it came to doing things like in-class voting using mobile devices, they're not really happy to do that. They're not even happy to participate in things like online forums using their mobile devices either, which we were kind of disappointed by this result. We thought it would be a bit more even across all the activities, but it wasn't. And we explored that point a bit further. Oops. And here, we just asked them to settle on an opinion that they agreed with the strongest. So we asked them things like, using my mobile phone in class would help me prepare for the working world, or I want to use my mobile phone in class as part of my education because I think it would be fun. Other things like, if I use my phone in class, it would be too distracting, and so on. But most people plumped for this option, which was, I would use it for informal learning purposes only. I don't want to use it in class. So this, at the time, my colleague Kate Reeder and Mike Cameron said, are our students really Web 1.0 when we want them to be Web 2.0? And yes. How many? It was about 860, yeah. We've got a better response rate for this year, and this year it shows the same sort of stuff. Anyway, not to be put off by this, we sort of forced ResponseWare on them anyway, even though they didn't really want to use it. I mean, the stuff that we were getting back unprompted comments on our survey saying, oh, it's going to be far too distracting, or I don't have the right type of mobile device, or even things like, if we start using our mobile devices in class, it's going to dumb down our education. So, but we said, oh well, we'll try it anyway. And we piloted ResponseWare with a class of about 30 students. Okay, so it's quite small. And we carried out focus groups with them afterwards to find out what they thought of ResponseWare. And so they used it over a period of one term, one semester. And these are the comments that we got back. Generally, students were positive and they didn't seem to mind using them at all, really. So this person was talking about the fact that you could use mobile devices and the clickers at the same time, so you weren't disadvantaged if you had the wrong type of device. Others talking about the fact that because the questions came up in quick succession, there was no time for them to get distracted by Twitter or Facebook and so on. Others saying that they know how to use their mobile device better now, which was interesting. And they like that sense of freedom of using their own stuff. And there's just a few more here. One guy said, oh, I got a text message at the point that I was voting, so I went off and checked that, and that was a distraction for me. So maybe thinking about turning those kind of alerts off before using student mobile devices would be a good idea. And then other people, at the time that we did this last year, we didn't have a very good Wi-Fi system at all, and that's what I was talking to Paul about. It was very, very patchy. It didn't support enough users. Luckily, that's all changed now, and we do have a much, much better Wi-Fi service. So we hope to continue with ResponseWare in the future. The lecturer who allowed me to come in and pilot ResponseWare with his students is a guy called Cengiz Turkoglu, and he is going to talk to you now, and he's just giving you his opinion on what happened when he used ResponseWare. the first part that Cengiz was talking about, what he did is he got his students in PC labs and he got them to go away and do some research about a particular topic, and then he would ask them questions about that using ResponseWare, and they would vote on the PCs. And that worked quite well as a teaching approach, actually. And he also used student mobile devices, but as he said, only 10 to 15% of his students were able to take part, mainly because, as he said, the Wi-Fi was just not there. And obviously, if students are relying on 3G, you know, it's their own costs that they're having to pay for access. Anyway, just to finish up then, the lessons that we've learned, well, really, we feel that there's quite a mismatch between student expectations of what using mobile devices in class are and their actual real experiences of it. As we've seen, students were completely anti using mobile devices in lectures and so on, but when you do it for real, they seem okay with it. The pros of ResponseWare, we find that it's very simple, it's familiar, it allows for anonymous voting. The free text thing is really good, the messaging thing is really good. Again, you've got the PowerPoint integration, which we think is really key. We really feel that that's what makes TurningPoint so successful. And also not forgetting the parallel use with the regular clickers, although that's kind of like, you know, although that's a positive, it's also a negative because you can't, those people that are on regular clickers can't take part in the kind of essay-based questions. The cons are, it's, you know, completely dependent on internet connection, and ideally it would be free Wi-Fi, so students don't have to sort of pay for connection. We were wondering actually if ResponseWare could be developed in such a way that it would allow for voting via text, Twitter, things like that as well. If it allowed voting via text, then a lot more student devices could get involved. Not all students have the right mobile device, so they might not have the right browser, and we noticed security certificate issues and things like that. And also we feel that the pricing model, certainly in the UK, could be it could be changed to support more of an ad hoc kind of use. So what's next for us? We're just going to keep exploring the features. We really want to use TurningPoint ResponseWare more with TurningPoint Anywhere because of the whole ability to feed back to individual devices. We really want to explore that. And that's about it, really. So thank you very much for listening. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues, Mike Cameron, who's at Newcastle, Kate Reeder from City, Ajmal Sultani from City University as well, and Nitin Palmer at Bath University, also Paul Jenner, who's sitting over there. And this is just a view of London where I work, so it's always raining. But thank you very much for listening, and are there any questions?